Did you know that there's 5 types of obesity? So I want to talk about the different kinds of obesity. A lot of people don't realize it's just not calories in versus calories out, but there are different carbs. So the first type of obesity is calories in versus calories out. This is the old school type that most of you are all familiar with, that you've seen, that we've treated and we talked about. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. This is the old-fashioned type. If you just change your diet, go paleo, do an anti-inflammatory diet, that you can actually cut back on, lose weight, and pretty cool, right? We have a lot of resources on our website. We have our Connected Cleanse. We've got some other paleo diets, bunch of things, bunch of free resources. Recommend you consider using those, but that's type 1 obesity. Super easy. Not going to talk about a whole lot about that. The next type of obesity I want to talk about is inflammation or inflammatory. This is where people tend to be more puffy. You feel more kind of cruddy, swollen hands. You might notice significant weight changes. Sometimes people will mistake it for being hormonal because they'll see this during cycling. You might change your diet a little bit and think, oh my gosh, I'm losing lots of weight, when it's really treating your inflammation. Now, the interesting thing about this is you can actually do some lab testing to see if you have this kind of, weight issue. Looking at a SUD rate, which is a marker for inflammation, looking at HSCRP, fibrinogen levels, even looking at just a good old-fashioned white blood cell count. A typical normal, quote-unquote, normal white blood cell count is up to, anywhere from 4 to 10, but actually optimal is about 6. So if your white blood cell count is, say, 8 or 9, you have inflammation. A whole bunch of different markers for inflammation, but just is that you deal with inflammation, you lose weight. Next type of obesity is toxin related. Now, this can be from the environment, from these things called obesogens, chemicals in the environment. This can be related to things in your gut. This can relate to a whole host of things. But this is really difficult because with toxin-related weight issues, you can also respond very nicely to dietary interventions, nutritional interventions, and you won't realize that you're actually dealing with toxicity versus inflammation versus the calories in versus calories out. So we talked about regular type of obesity, inflammation, toxin. The next one I want to talk about is your metabolism or your microbiome in your gut. This is where some of the newer data and newer literature are looking at metabolic illnesses, gut problems, looking at microbiome issues. It's really interesting. We've known since going back to the 1940s or 50s, that antibiotics can actually induce weight gain in animals. And actually something like 80% of all antibiotics are actually used in the agribusiness. So this is a commonly known thing. This is also where things like probiotics, fermented foods, GLP-1s, I was talking a while ago, getting short breath there, about Akkermansia semiphilo, or GLP-1 probiotic, which is a pendulum product being used for weight issues. This is where that kind of comes into play. Last but not least is trauma. This is something people don't talk about a lot. You might say cortisol, lots of different terms for it. But the concept is your nervous system gets stressed. Physical, emotional, sexual trauma, environmental traumas, chemicals, whatever it is. And the result is your nervous system gets upregulated, gets a stress response. All of a sudden, you can't lose weight because your nervous system is stressed. Your body is stressed, and you're like, hey, I can't lose weight. So that's the 5th kind. And I see a lot of people who will do all the right stuff, do all the right diet, the right exercise, everything, they'll lose some weight. It's starting eventually, you'll kind of get the story that, hey, there's some environmental trauma, physical, sexual, emotional trauma, and even being sick itself can cause a neurological response that makes you hold on to weight. So those are the 5 kinds of obesity, of weight issues. We'll talk about a little later how you can figure out which combination of yours you're dealing with, and how to start losing weight, addressing the 5 types of obesity. If you have questions, if you actually think you're one of these 5 types, if you think you're toxic versus good old-fashioned versus out versus metabolic versus trauma, whatever, put that below. I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to hear what you've done to help with your weight or how you're getting stuck. Anyway, next time we'll talk about some ideas and some concepts about how you start addressing and dealing with your weight issues related to these 5 major causes of obesity. Talk to you soon.